Okay. I want to call the regular meeting of the Village of Corrales governing body to order. Could you please turn your phones off or put them on vibrate so you don't disturb anybody who might be speaking during the meeting? Once you've done that, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Councilor Miera.
Aquí.
Councilor Woolman.
Here.
Councilor Knight.
Here.
Councilor Also Brook.
Here.
Councilor Burkett.
Present.
Councilor Murray.
Here.
All right, everybody's here. So I need a motion to approve the agenda if everybody's had a chance to look it over.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, ayes have it, and the agenda is approved. We will move at this point to Mr. Curry, the village administrator, who will give us his report.
As Melanie mentioned, our internet is down. And are we recording?
Yeah, this computer is hooked up to the Ethernet and not the Wi-Fi, so Zoom is fine. It's just our council members can't get on to access their packets online.
Okay, can we get Tanya in here?
Yes,
You say our counselors can't look at their agenda?
they can't look at their packets. That's why that's why we started late.
Oh, that's why you
I was
went and got
making
packets.
copies
Gotcha.
for them.
Okay,
But
I understand.
you can't
Took me
see.
a while.
Can we get on Zoom here?
Yes, well, I mean, we're on Zoom. We have Tanya up there behind you.
No, but can I get on Zoom on this? Okay,
Unfortunately not.
all right. All right, Tanya.
Technology.
Thank you, Mayor, Council Administrator Curry. If you can hear my voice, I definitely have a cold or something. So we're going to talk about COVID and everything else. Right now, nationwide, COVID is increasing. New Mexico is not. We're coming down from our peak. If we hold true to how we've done it in the previous 3 years, we follow the rest of the world by about 3 weeks. The rest of the United States, we start peaking about 3 weeks after they do. Today in the hospital, we had 93 people with COVID, 78 with flu. So New Mexico's flu map, and I put a copy in the monthly, we are at the highest level of high. If we get any more, we will be going to very high in flu. There is a lot of the flu map is influenza-like illnesses, respiratory, coughing, sneezing, those kind of things. So it's not really a flu map. It's anything that could look like flu. Right now, about 3% of the people that have those go to the hospital have COVID. Another 2.6 have influenza, and then there's a little bit that makes up flu. So it's like 6.2% of people have some respiratory thing they've gone to the hospital for and get discharged for. But there's colds, there's flus, there's RSV, all of that's going around. So it's still time for you. You can still get a flu shot or a COVID booster if you haven't gotten it. And right now we're almost to the point. Remember, if you get COVID before Christmas, you're supposed to isolate with masks for a full 6 days with day 0, and then mask up around others for 10. So start counting your days on being really safe, especially if you're going to go visit loved ones who are at risk. That way you guys can all have a safe Christmas together. And we still have COVID tests available. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Tanya.
Next thing I wanted to address was Councilor Woolman had asked at the last meeting and sent me an email as well about what we do with the chilly weather as regards to the animal services building that is still undergoing remediation, I guess is the right word at this point. We have a standing, as we've mentioned before, we have a standing agreement with the Animal Humane Association that still is there, that if we need to ship any dogs or animals there for safekeeping, we have that agreement. And we haven't had to ship anything there at this point. I'd ask Vic to come up here and add anything to that.
There, Council Administrator Curry, actually, 2 Chihuahuas were turned over to Animal Humane on the 4th of this month. And that's been since I think April was the last one prior to that. And then the one dog that was in animal control custody at the end of November, that would have been on your monthly report, has been adopted out within the village.
But the agreement is still in, as far as if we have to, because of the weather, we have to move any dogs or cats that's there.
Correct. And they're still using the temporary holding rooms that they have over there, which I understand are now hooked up to the climate control ductwork in there. So it's obviously a more comfortable, humane environment for the animals as well.
Do you have a question, Councilor Wellman?
Yes, as we discussed before, many years ago, we had a problem with Animal Humane and they didn't honor our no-kill policy. Do we have written assurance at this point, contract with them that will sustain our no-kill policy?
Yes.
It's a written contract, not just an email.
We can get that, but I consider the email as a written contract.
Okay, I think we probably need something stronger if we can.
We can get that, not a problem.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Chief, appreciate it.
If I
Yes, sir.
could, just a couple questions about the building, if I could. We know that it looks now like it's not going to be ready until probably April.
Correct.
There are going to be additional charges, perhaps.
Perhaps those are things that are in the ebb and flow of negotiations, and we anticipate there will be additional charges. It's a matter of who will be finally paying for those charges.
Okay. It would seem to me that since Facility Build were responsible for getting the permits and going to the state, and Horizon Structures really can't be expected to know the codes in every jurisdiction. That Facility Build is responsible for, number one, fixing the building, and number two, paying whatever costs there may be. Just want to throw that out. I know there's going to be some negotiations going forward, but I think that's something that we should consider as council and administration. The building itself cost $86,000. The cost that Facility Build charged was $180,000. It seems to me that there should be some leeway in there, and they're picking up some additional costs. The building in Sandoval County, as we know, it was different than the building here. The main difference being the concrete pad, as opposed to what happened in Sandoval County, and they were able to, whatever fix may have been needed, they could take care of that. We can't take care of that unless apparently we chunk up or we do something. So I just want to throw that out there. Obviously, this is only the middle of December. We're not going to know anything for another month or two. But I would strongly urge the administration to take that into consideration.
I completely agree. As we move forward on this, we're going to look for accountability on the folks. You know, it's a situation that we feel, just like you do, that there are some things that were perhaps assumed rather than documented. Yeah. And so as we move forward on it, we're not going to give a free pass to anyone, whether it's Horizon or whether it's Facility Build or anyone else. Because we as the village, going all the way back to the first time that you sat in my office and talked about this particular facility, we've operated in good faith on trying to get this facility in place. And you're correct about the pad, comparing it to Sandoval County. That's exactly correct. And then when the state, and as we discovered, the state and Horizon apparently had some differences or animus back and forth toward one another because of lack of communication. And I don't know if that was because of the fact that Horizon was located on the East Coast and they looked at us in a different way. I don't know those things. But as we go forward, we don't feel as the village that we operated in a way that was not in good faith. We do feel like, however, that we want to examine everything that we did as far as requiring accountability. And that's our responsibility, is to make sure that accountability is held forth.
This goes back to the beginning, but I think going forward, if any buildings like this in the future, that perhaps someone with expertise who knows about structures like this should be brought in to act on behalf of the administration going forward. As we know, it's useless. We can't put cats in there. They're going to have to go back into the concrete cells. The areas for dogs are too small. So there are a number of things that we're going to have to live with, but could be better. Could have been done better, and perhaps in the future we can do that. So, but thanks for the update.
Councilman.
Just a follow-up question along the same lines, and I don't know if I missed this in the initial going through this. I remember the total price, but I did not realize that 180,000 of that was the facility build. So that was pulling permits, pouring slab, and hooking up utilities. Is that kind of the general extent of what they did?
It also included the cost of building a retaining wall that was required by P&Z as part of the site development plan.
That's incredible. So I think absolutely. I mean, if one of those three tasks was not done appropriately, I think it's very clear who should be responsible for any. I mean, that's a fairly large sum of money for what doesn't seem like a fairly large job. So I'm blown away that I didn't realize how that money was split between those two entities. But I think I agree with Councilor Waldman that there are issues that they had a very short list of things to do for a lot of money, and it doesn't sound like it was done well, at least one of them. Hopefully the other ones were.
Perhaps we could give the council a breakdown on all the charges, because I think they've sort of gotten a little off the track about how things were paid and what was paid. I will say that Horizon is being very cooperative and is providing all the information that is needed. They have not requested any additional fees or whatever. They've hired, wasn't the architect, I think the architect was here, right? They hired an architect here to actually modify their drawings to fit what the state wants. They have all the information from the state. They're in communication with the state and Facility Build. Facility Build is also in I just said that, Facility Build is in communication, but they're also working on the mitigation of these problems. At this point, there have been no charges, no fees required. Everybody is doing their job. And so right now, we're not throwing rocks at anybody. We just want to get it taken care of. When all this settles out, then we'll deal with any irregularities or fees that we have to deal with. I guess that's really, I'm perfectly happy with them. I mean, they're doing everything they can to keep us happy, because they have done a lot of work here in the village and they don't want to lose that work in the future.
I would think, I mean, I would say that is 100% true. And neither would I if I could get that kind of work. So.
Okay, but let's do that, Melanie. We'll just give them we can probably send that to them as an email or.
Yeah, I can do that tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Ron, you have anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a list.
Oh, it's the list from this morning, huh?
Well, the week goes on.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to give an update on is the purchase of the bank across the street. As some of you may have noticed, they were putting in a new ATM this afternoon, all day today. It's still in progress. And we got a request from Patrick McClernand to look at the possibility of moving the ATM. And in the contract that we're working with them on, the ATM is set there for, at this point, at 1 year with a 5-year option to move it. And they will be paying the village $6,000 a year rent for the ATM. They paid the Gonzaleses $12,000 a year, but that was for the drive-up windows as well. The drive-up windows, the 2 lanes for the drive-up windows will be the village's at this point after the purchase is complete. And so the ATM as it sits in its position will be there and in the position that it's in. But as far as the process of the entire building coming forward to the village, it's still on track. We anticipate a closing date hopefully within the next 45 days. And as we do that, the bank is anxious to get it done, but dealing with banks, we have found to be a little more, what we were told up front that the bank would have more paperwork for us than normal closings would have. And so far we've seen that. But we're moving in good faith, and there's been some deposit money that's been exchanged. And so we anticipate a closing within 45 days. The contract explicitly talks about the lease being in the existing drive-through ATM location on the property. And so that's the basis of my comments on that. I wanted to give an update on since we're talking about money in banks, on the local government investment pool. The total at this point, as of today, it may have creeped up a little bit on us, because as of 11/30, November 30th, it was at $3,748,359, with the interest accruing for the month of November of $16,485. And so it's still a fund that's gaining.
That's
Simply-
after we took the money out for the Gonzalez property.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. There's been no monies taken out of that since the Gonzalez property. So I'm going to give it to Melanie for a moment. She's going to talk about the election updates and some other items.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have two, if I could.
Sure.
Two quick questions. We often get the mid-fiscal year and expenses come up. Councilor Murray has raised this a number of occasions. I was wondering if we might be able to get an update of where we are as of the first of the year, or 6 months into the fiscal year, where we are financially and what we anticipate expenses may be in the balance of the 6 months. Maybe Randy could come up with that, I don't know, first or second meeting in January.
Absolutely.
Second thing is, could you give us an update as to where we stand, the New Mexico Main Street and the community group meeting about the administrative complex? That was voted on by the council, directed by the mayor. I just want to know where we stand on that.
We have a meeting coming up in
It's the 19th. or
19th, I
something.
believe, with Amy Bell. She is certified through the CES and the state of New Mexico as a contractor on that. So we'll be having a meeting on that to continue the planning process on the administrative complex parking lot.
Okay, and the community group will be involved in that meeting?
Yeah, they're welcome to sit in on it if they want.
Okay. On the 19th?
Yeah.
And that'll be in the conference room?
I'm not sure where it'll depend on how many people want to sit in.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I was asked to give an update on the election and how it was different from our 2022 election. So we saw an increase of approximately 200 registered voters since the 2022 election. So we're now at 7,409 registered voters in the village. The total number of people who came out to vote for the November 7th election was 1,732, which works out to be about 23% of the registered voters. In comparison to 2018, which was the last time these particular positions were up for election, we saw about 52 fewer votes overall. So not a large increase, but a slight decrease from the 2018 election. I did contact the county and just asked for sort of an update on, what could we have done better? What went well? And they said they're still dealing with recounts for a couple of contests in other municipalities and won't be able to give us any updates until after the end of December. So I'll be able to give you another update, excuse me, in January on how the county felt the election went. But feedback I got from people was that they felt things went smoothly. We had an excellent team running the early voting site for us. I didn't hear of any long lines on election day. So as far as I know, things went very, very smoothly. Are there any questions?
Councilor Woolman, did you want
Yeah,
to?
just one quick question. We had discussed early on, before we made the decision, a question of security of the ballots and security of the machines. Being in the community center, did that qualify on early voting? Because when it was in your office, it had to be there.
Mhm.
Does the community center now qualify as a secure facility?
It sure does.
Okay.
We actually collect all of the keys from the renters. Anybody that has a key that they've checked out from the village has to return that before anything is done. And then those machines are locked every night. So there's a key and everything is locked up. So the building is locked, the ballot boxes are locked. So it's considered a secure location.
And did we use any drop boxes for this election?
No, they actually closed our drop box here. But there were drop boxes throughout the county that could be used. They just didn't open the one here in front of the administration office.
Thanks very much.
Yes, sir.
Just two brief comments. One is, I think the decrease in turnout's probably not related to anything other than there was nobody running against any of the counselors. So there was probably less interest in coming out and voting for the one person they could vote for on all the positions. And then the one comment I would have.
We had bonds up for.
We did. So yeah, but I do think that there's probably, you probably would have gotten an extra 50 people if there was a little bit of competition on any of the races. And then my other comment, and I don't think it's in our hands, but something I'd like us to pass along to the county for them to address is with the fact that we're still dealing with COVID, people who had COVID, there was no way for them to vote. I actually asked at the voting place, and the suggestion was to bring them in and they would put them at a machine in the corner. They said they couldn't even let them do it just outside the door. So that is something that I would love to provide to the county as information that we need. There needs to be some sort of plan that also is in compliance with health guidelines. Yes.
I can certainly pass that along. Part of that comes from the state election code,
Right.
that a ballot is not allowed to leave the voting site itself. So even letting it leave, stepping outside goes against state election code. So that would probably be something we'd have to take up with the state legislature. Right. But I can certainly pass that along to the Secretary of State's office. And they were wonderful as well. They still, even though I was not the clerk running the election, they answered all of my questions. They sent me copies of things when asked. So they were still very responsive to me as a clerk, even though I wasn't the clerk in charge of the election.
It seemed to run well, though. I didn't feel like there was anything really lacking, so it seemed fine.
Well, good. Yeah, I think we traditionally see fewer voters turn out in the election for judge and council members than for mayor and council members, just kind of looking back at historical numbers. I'm not quite sure why that is, but.
Yes, John.
Just a very brief comment. You mentioned they won't be able to get back to us with more information until after they're dealing with other issues. I think that's going to be the pattern we see always. Where we are one of many competing for a limited resource, and the information flow is going to be whatever it is.
I don't think it would be any quicker if we ran the election.
You don't think so?
No. It might be more, I don't want to, throw any rocks at Melanie, but, it might be, a little more confusing.
It could be, but I think it's something that we will see.
Yeah, but at least it's already been basically passed up the line, and then she'll address it to her contacts. And, if it's an issue that can be corrected, I'm sure they'll come up with a plan. It may take state legislation.
And again, if, we have one more election cycle that we have to go through as an opt-in municipality, and then we can take a look at everything again. And if we feel like it's not meeting the needs of our residents, then we can go back to running the election ourselves. Okay.
Okay.
The other update I had for you is regarding the comprehensive plan survey. So the survey closed last night. I had been entering the results from the paper ballots into SurveyMonkey as they came in. So I had 4 left this morning to enter. So those were entered and then everything was closed out. So the totals for the comprehensive plan survey, we had 1,876 completed surveys. This does not count the 31 people who were not residents that tried to take the survey. The very first question in the survey was, are you a resident of Corrales? If they answered no, they got a very nice notice that said, thank you, but you must be a resident of Corrales. So I don't know if any of those 31 people figured that out and then went back and said, oh, yes, I am a resident. But, they obviously care enough about the village to want to have their say. So I think, it's probably fine. We had 224 paper surveys that were turned in. And of those, none of the surveys returned were in Spanish. So we printed copies of the Spanish survey, had it available at the administration office and at the library. And none of those 224 that came back were actually in Spanish. 2 people chose to take the survey online in Spanish. So, and then I will be turning all of this information over to Chris Allen and her team. They meet next on Thursday. They got multiple emails from me today. I'm sorry, Chris. So the first one was an attachment that had 60 pages, and that was all of the survey question answers. In each question has a really cool little chart, and then underneath is a breakout of how many people answered strongly opposed, somewhat opposed, neutral, and it has all of that broken out into percentages. And then the other email I sent was a 55-page document of all of the handwritten comments that people entered into the survey. So they will be taking that and crunching all those numbers. I do believe they're going to take a short break over the holidays and then get back to everything after the first of the year.
Do you have a question? Okay.
Can you show the update on
Anybody up there have a question?
up there?
Okay, we have a new video.
Yeah.
Those, by the way, are the locker rooms.
Very good.
Great bathroom.
Yeah, the scoreboards are not in yet, but they're coming soon. And they'll be able to run 2 games at the same time with 2 separate scoreboards, which is important especially for the little folks that are playing in there. So we anticipate an opening sometime in January. And The optimistic date is January 10th. The realistic date is January 30th. So we'll just see what happens. Next thing I wanted to mention, just as kind of a brief, is that from December 1st through today, or yesterday, there have been 37 citations issued for over the speed limit, primarily on Corrales Road in Loma Larga and Meadowlark. And out of those 37 citations, only 6 are from Corrales. And there's a more robust report that you can get or we can generate for you. I'm not sure exactly, what a data expert would say, but it seems that people of Corrales are paying more attention to our speed limits. But 37 citations from the first of the month until today or yesterday. So there are VIX folks are out there doing their job. Also, just notice, and we'll put it up on the website, sometime over the holiday, we don't have a date certain yet, down by the school, they'll be connecting the fire suppression line from the school to our other system. It'll be going under the road down near the school, and it will give the fire department an additional 60,000 gallons of water that will be coming from the tank that's located on the schoolyard. And Chief Martinez is very happy about that, but it will be taking place, and it's another step as we continue to spread the fire suppression system around the village. The last thing, Mayor and Council, I want to talk about was a meeting that was held at the school on Tuesday, November 28th. It was a meeting that the mayor requested between the village and the Albuquerque Public Schools regarding their expansion or their proposed site development for the new K-8 program at Corrales Elementary. In attendance at this meeting was the mayor, myself, Melanie, representative from the fire department. Lori Stout was there from planning and zoning, and they discussed with us their site design concept. And as we listened to the meeting, the meeting ran for about an hour and 15 minutes. And one of the first things that was brought up by Chief Martinez's folks was that the proposed building that they will start with, they're going to move to demolish the school as we know it, the front part of it, and build on the back side of the property. And the first phase of it will be in proposing a building that's 40 feet tall, 2 stories, and they have a whole concept trying to make the school fit into Corrales as a community. And again, when we heard about this, we heard about it through Lori as they were approaching her to talk about it. And the mayor thought it was very important that we be involved right away because this is a big project. I think most people who are familiar with education would agree that a K-8 program is very important and is the preferred way of doing things. Councilor Miro might have some opinions on that based on his background. But the urgency of this meeting, because of the way that we were approached by Albuquerque Public Schools, generated a response from the mayor that we wanted to have a meeting to see what was going on behalf of the village. Once we'd listened to the proposal, the mayor felt, I felt, and others that were there felt that it certainly had a lot of great possibilities. But one of the things that the mayor talked about, that we all talked about, is that we hope that APS in their process would work in collaboration with the village as much as possible. And it was brought to our attention primarily because of what, when Lori was first approached, is that they made it fairly clear to us is that because APS is a state entity, it's a part of the state, is that they don't necessarily have to conform in their construction process to the various ordinances or codes within the village. One of the things that first brought that up, as I mentioned, was that Chief Martinez mentioned to him that he didn't have a ladder that was 40 feet. And as you well know, as we went through the process with the new gymnasium, we had our codes call for a 26-foot building, 26 foot, and we had to get a waiver. I think the mayor during the course of the meeting emphasized at least 3 times that we want to work in collaboration, and we asked APS to work in collaboration with the village. Because what they're trying to do with this concept is to provide a better opportunity for schooling and education for the children of Corrales. And they anticipate the total population of the school will be around 500 students, mostly, if not all, from Corrales. And they said that the demographics of Corrales, even as the village tends to age, the demographics of Corrales still support 500 students in a K-8 program. And questions were asked, and they said that they would collaborate or try to collaborate, but APS approaches construction projects with state rules only in a general situation. So what that means, and perhaps Randy would elaborate on this, but the state considers APS as a state entity, as they do themselves, and they made that pretty clear during the course of our meeting. And they feel that they only have to abide by whatever rules that the state allows them to do during the course of construction. This project will go in phases, and the building that I talked about that will be on the back portion of the property that will be 40 feet tall will be one of the first phases to go up. We were asked them about their funding as far as the entire project. And again, they were saying that the funding would come in phases as well. They talked about the possibility of bonds that would be floated in a 25, I believe, election, and also talking about capital outlay coming from the state of New Mexico. They also asked, because the mayor asked them if they would be willing at some time to come forward and make a presentation in front of the folks here, and they said, of course they would. But this is a big project. It's not something that appears to me that's going to happen overnight, but it is something that is on their drawing board that they feel that is going to be a benefit to Corrales and a benefit to the students of Corrales for their educational purposes. There are parts of the school down there, as many of you know, they've had children in that school that go all the way back to the 50s and 60s. And so there needs to be some changes made. They feel that they're willing to make an investment in it. And we emphasized over and over again that we urge them to collaborate with us because of the uniqueness of the village. And they, in their plans, they wanted to make sure that they had considered the uniqueness of the village as they'd gone through their site design concept. So I've got copies here that I can pass out to the counselors so that you can take a look at it. It's what they gave to us. And Melody, you've got some other copies over there
I
too.
do have a few extras here, if anybody
So-
in the audience wants one.
But,
Councilor, I have some.
okay, do you? Okay.
Councilor Alsterbrook?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, what's the village legislation, or what is the enabling statute that establishes the village's relationship with APS as opposed to Rio Rancho School District?
You mean, why do we have an APS school as opposed to being involved with Rio Rancho?
Yeah, what's
I don't
the
have
basis
any
for that?
idea.
So is it,
It's obviously been that way for a long time.
There's a creation of school districts, much like the creation of a municipality, and boundaries are proposed and adopted, and then that becomes part of the district, and Corrales has, for as long as I can remember, been part of APS.
so it's really sort of like an overlay?
Yes, it's another political subdivision that exists within and on top of, kind of like SCAFCA exists over the local governments as well. And when this all came up, I did a deep dive into the law in regards to schools. State law is pretty clear that all state institutions and state entities do not have to follow local zoning and land use regulations. And what was less clear to me was whether APS fell in that category or not, and whether public schools do. But when I completed my research, it's pretty clear that they do, because of their unique status of being a part of the State Department of Education and a subdivision, if you will. So they usually are very good partners because they have to use our infrastructure. And for example, back in the day when the Pueblo Cultural Center and that whole property was developed in the city of Albuquerque, they're a separate nation, but they still have to hook up to all of our roads and make all the roads work and the utilities and so forth. So they're good partners. And I think that'll be one of the big things where we're going to have interconnections is 500 students in that one location is going to have to be dealt with from a very high level traffic planning wise and all of those things. But we do not have any jurisdictional control over them.
And their authority stems directly from the state?
Correct.
I appreciate their transparency. It's just doesn't
Don't appreciate it
doesn't
too
have-
much. It did take
Doesn't have a
bit of
pleasant
it.
aroma at this point.
You know, I
Councilor Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm getting the feeling that they're going to build a new gym. Is that the reason for the 40 feet?
I'm not sure if that's where the 40 feet is, but they did say they were going to build a gym, and the architect who was there said, you know, they need 26 feet, and we said, well, we've already been through that. But I didn't recall the 40 feet. I didn't recall how high the building. I knew it was going to be more than 26.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that the gym, I could understand being higher than the rest of the buildings, but I would try to urge them to, I don't know what they do with a school building that was 20 feet per floor. I mean, I'm HVAC and stuff.
I think we can deal with them in a reasonable, common sense way because like Anthony said, I don't have a ladder.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's probably better if you don't have 40 feet, if you might come down a little bit.
I would agree with that.
So we're trying to approach this because as Randy said, we can't really tell them what to do, but we can sort of, you know, work with them and it's going to be a great place. It looks fantastic. They're going to, you know, take us up to the, you know, the 21st century, but there are some things that might have, you know, might impact people in the village negatively. The one good thing they were going to focus on is the traffic issue, and they have a good plan for that. They're going to use their entire campus to suck up the traffic off of Corrales Road.
Is there any intent of using the interior drain for traffic?
No.
Okay.
Interior drain does not
But-
belong to them, and they can't do that.
Okay, so anyway, yes, if we can herd them like cats and get them going in the right direction, I would appreciate that.
Well, that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we had this meeting. And that's why we approached everything up front. First thing we asked them is how tall your building's going to be. And the second thing we asked them, what's your footprint? And they tried to describe what they were going to do with the footprint. And they're going to have more open space out front. So they're going to have a green expanse. Instead of a building there, it's going to be this nice big green park-like expanse. And then I, of course, said, well, how are you going to water it? You know, always the negative. But
Oh, I have a couple more questions for Mr. Curry, if you wouldn't mind. So in the video that you showed at the gym, or emergency exits, do they have to be ADA compliant? Because when I watched the workmen, they were just working on the steps, you know, coming out of the backside of the gym, it looked like. But do they have to be ADA compliant so that anybody with a disability can get out and down?
yes, they can get out of this building.
Oh, I mean, they can get out of the building, but, you know, is there like ramps or anything like that required?
Yes, there are ramps. There are ramps there. They didn't show those. They showed you the stairs because they were working out there.
Okay.
They looked, you know, being very artistic. And anyway, it's, yes, they have ramps. There are ramps. There's a ramp just on the opposite side.
And my other question has to do with Corrales Road. When you were talking about the citations that were issued, my understanding, do we have an MOU with the state police department that we have jurisdiction to issue citations on Corrales Road?
We have an agreement that is kind of I'll let Vic take it.
Councilman Mayor, Council. So the MOU is actually not necessary. We do have jurisdiction anywhere within the village limits, and we're also cross-commissioned with the Sandoval County Sheriff's Office to have jurisdiction countywide.
Well, but I'm curious about, because I think Councilor Knight brought this up about one time about parking on Corrales Road and issuing citations. And since the DOT right-of-way extends up into some of these businesses, do we issue citations, or can we issue citations for people who are violating the parking requirements on the DOT right-of-way?
Councilor Mayor and Council, we can. Yeah, if it's posted, if they're committing a violation, just being in the right-of-way is not actually a violation. If they're creating an obstruction, parked on the pavement, parked in a no parking zone, parked in a handicap spot, yes, we can issue citations along Corrales Road. I believe there was a miscommunication where somebody felt that the state police were the only authority to issue citations, parking or otherwise, on Corrales Road, but we do have jurisdiction throughout the village and, you know, as well as Sandoval County when necessary. So the short answer is yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a quick question.
Oh, wait. Rick, did you want to say something about the school?
I'll just follow up.
Okay, after
Just
Bill.
a quick question. For comparison's sake, this new school is going to be able to accommodate 500 students. How many are at Corrales Elementary now? Do we know?
300?
350, I think, is what they said.
I'm thinking in terms of traffic and those kinds of things. Okay.
It's going to be
Thank
an
you.
increase.
Yes, sir. Councilor Mira.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to do a follow-up on a couple of questions. They were good questions. First of all, how they broke it up. I was in the Legislature Education Committee when we created the Rio Rancho District, which is really a breakoff of the Jemez District. And so that's how that came to be. We had to, and then they had to make the decisions, but I remember this one that stuck out only because of the fact that Rio Rancho wasn't coming into this area, so therefore they remained in the Albuquerque public school system. And so for that particular reason is why this one still is an outlier, just very much like the one down on 4th Street, way far away from Albuquerque Public Schools, but within Bernalillo County area. But this one, it was a different county. That's not unusual. But at the time, Rio Rancho didn't really want to have us, didn't want to cross over into our district anyway, which was fine with everybody on the voting end. The other part about the funds is unique because of the fact that we can have a say with APS. We can negotiate with APS. We've done that an awful lot with an awful lot of other districts along the way that I was personally involved with from a legislative perspective. But they were not, so APS was not part of the Zuni district, which really had a Zuni lawsuit a long time ago, which as we went through that, when it determined that we had to work with Zuni and those people that were in that that filed that lawsuit, we worked with them a little bit different, but APS has so we say sufficient amount of funds to do for capital outlay for building schools and so forth. I think some of the questions that will probably come up is how much more are we going to be able to negotiate with APS with regards to like a little performing arts center, which was we're not going to do. But if you were at a high school, that would be on the agenda. Are you going to give us some place other than the cafeteria or now the new gym for us to be able to have some plays and so forth and so on? But those are the kind of situations that we are regularly rolled into what the negotiations are these days. And so I think historically, we don't have to worry about having a negotiation. And now I bring in my point, and I read it real quickly because we just gave it to us here, but it seems like they're going to pay homage to the vernacular local architecture of adobe construction, whether it's adobe or not, but at least adobe looking. And so I think that's really important, that the school is going to reflect and it doesn't, because they can make up their own mind. They also should be negotiating. And there's pieces of legislation that I can remember where to find that if you needed it, but I don't think we're going to have to go there. But we really want it to look like Corrales.
Yes.
I think that's really important. I think that was about it. Just the K through 8, you read at the beginning of it. I think this is going to be a beginning for APS, because not very many people have it. In fact, I can't really remember they were starting it, but it takes us back to the olden days when we say, what happened to the good old fashioned days when we had K through 8, and then there was grade school, and then there was junior high, and then there was high school. Now we kind of get it all mixed up. But, research has showed us that we really do want to have the K through 8 situation where they look up to somebody who's going in the 8th grade, and we look at the other end of it, is do we have that footprint? But I think that's really important, that if we have that footprint, that we can have those K individuals in there and the 8th grade, and they come in at different times and they go home at different times.
Yeah, they did say all those things, and they did want to make this a sort of a jewel, sort of a special place. And they were commenting that this was their first, not their first, but the first in a long time.
Yes.
Where they had done a K through 8. And they also they seem to be, and this is my perception, perhaps you guys can, I don't know what you felt, but they seem to be a lot more agreeable at the end of our discussion than they were when we first walked in. And there seemed to be a little undercurrent of, I don't know if it's animosity or what, but like they were, kind of, they didn't want to listen to the Hicks, that kind of thing.
A little defensive.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. I was thinking it may not be the gym that's 40 feet tall. It may be the 2-story, the building itself.
Yeah, we haven't seen a plan other than what you see right there. And the architect is still working on it. Because what they're going to do is they're going to tear down buildings and then build something in the footprint. And so they have to really phase this carefully because they anticipate increasing enrollment over time. And so I don't know, we don't know their plan. They don't even, I think, know their plan. They've started thinking about it. And that's why we wanted to meet with them before they got too far along. We wanted to let them know that, we're here. And we have some experience with dealing with people in the community, and perhaps it would be worthwhile for us to sit and talk and discuss about some of your plans, like 26-foot building or 40-foot, whatever it is, and let them know that we are concerned. We are very concerned, especially where that school, goes back to Andrews Lane. We're very concerned about fire. And why it's important to have our fire department able to help them if that occurs. Yes, ma'am.
I think too, they probably have to put in a state-of-the-art septic system somehow to handle that new building as well as all those extra kids.
Well, perhaps that'll come up.
Yeah,
I'm sure that will, Mr. Mayor, because they're having some memories probably of all the problems that they had in the South Valley.
Well, we have that dirty water system that runs right by, and they've already hooked into it, but they may need, we've talked about putting a sewer line back on Andrews Lane in the interior drain, having a pipe back there that perhaps could be used by individuals back there as well as the school. But this is all extremely early.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I know that for them, time is of the essence. Is not, they want to get this done. I'm sure they'll need phases for the funding and what have you. Are we fairly confident that they will remain within the property footprint they already have? Or is there any precedent for APS using mechanisms like eminent domain to expand their property?
Oh, no, they're staying on their property as far as I'm aware. That's all they showed us. And I don't know where they would go.
They'll go up before they go wide.
Okay.
Hence the 40-foot building, perhaps.
They're going to need to buy the chief a fire truck.
Or a ladder.
Well,
A ladder.
Well, for time's sake, we won't.
Gonna lose by a lot.
Just a minute.
Let's don't go there, okay? It's very early, but we are talking and they are talking, and that's what's
That's
important.
important. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Ron?
That's enough.
That's enough. Yeah, gosh, it's already been an hour. Geez.
It's worth it.
Okay, now we're going to go to Counselors Forum. Seems like we've already been doing Counselors Forum, but this section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion or debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. Anybody have anything they want to say? Yes, Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor. I did a Zoom meeting with the Rio Metro Transportation Board, as I usually do every month. And they have some new chair people. The new chairman is Steve Tomita, and he's from Berlin. The vice chair is Tammy Fiebelkorn, and she's from Albuquerque. Isaac Benton was the previous chair, and he's leaving. They talked about how to have better connectivity from Los Lunas all the way up to Santa Fe on the Rail Runner. Instead of using towers, they're going to be using satellites. So it'll be more better connected. So that's a good thing. They also cleaned up and changed the bylaws, allowing for more virtual board meetings and looking at how the board of directors and the alternates are voted in. So that's pretty much, and I have another meeting this Thursday with this group.
Counselor Miera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two issues, or not issues, statements. You're probably familiar with my mentee that sits over here. You're all familiar with her. She's not here tonight because of the fact that there's finals coming up for her area, so she needed to do the final part. But I'm sure you're familiar with her, and I bring it up a couple of times only because of the fact that, are you familiar with Selfless Seniors? APS does that. Well, she qualified, and she is the Selfless Senior for Rio Rancho High, and so there's only one, Cibola High, I should say, but there's only one per high school, and so she qualified, and so on top of all of the other things that come along with making her Selfless Seniors, you can well imagine being involved here, but being involved in the community as well. She also gets $1,000 scholarship from Albuquerque Publishing Company, I believe, for that, in conjunction with APS to do that. So I'd like to ask if you have no problems that we ask the administration
Absolutely.
to send out a letter to her, and we can all sign it, or you can sign it for us there. But I think she deserves a bit of recognition from us on behalf of Corrales.
Let's make some kind of nice letter for Annabelle.
We can do that.
Yeah, and then we can all sign it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I can
I
let
think
everybody
that's a
know when
great
it's ready
idea.
for signature.
Thank you, Mr.
very, very nice.
And the second one,
Do you want us to do a proclamation too?
I would like that very much.
Wow.
Something you can hang on.
Okay, I don't see anybody shaking their head, so maybe we ought to do a little
I
proclamation.
think the award ceremony itself is in April,
It is.
so I don't know
We
if
got
you want
plenty of
to
time.
wait until then, when it's closer to,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put it on my board.
You won't forget.
I will not be allowed to forget, I don't think.
Okay, anybody
So,
else?
the second-
Okay, go ahead.
The second one was, council members might remember I sent a letter to you saying, what should we do now that we bought 3 pieces of property, that we should all, we should get together and decide, what are we gonna do and how are we gonna plan for the use of these properties, how they interact with one another, not that they stand out there on their own. And you brought it up at the meeting, and you said we should do that, and so just like to have your comment.
So we
about
have.
how that's coming along. Please tell us.
We have reached out to State Main Street, and we actually sat down for a Zoom meeting with the lady that they suggested, and we told her what we had and what we wanted to do, and, you know, kind of gave her an idea. And it turns out that she's more of a building person, but Amy Bell, who also works for Main Street, and, you know, and I can't remember the name of the landscape architect company.
Groundwork Studio.
Groundwork Studio, who's also working here in the village right now for 2 other projects, is going to also help to come up with a plan to try to, you know, tie all these in, which really, when you think about it, we're talking about mostly pathways, parking area, park, public restrooms at the Wells Fargo building, meeting rooms at the Wells Fargo building. It should not be very complicated. It will cost something. We don't know what yet, but that will help us. Those 2 working together in conjunction will probably help us come up with a design and a plan, or at least a plan, and then we can go with a design. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. So my understanding was we were looking for something instead of more how to physically connect them, but how to functionally connect
Yes.
them and administratively make everything more efficient, which I think will be more than just making them accessible from one to the other. I think that may require a different skill set, and I'm not sure, to be honest, what that skill set is or what that title would be, but it's more of a process situation than an actual landscaping or connectivity
I
situation.
think that
Mayor,
they're, yes, ma'am.
Angela is online. She said she's
Okay,
willing
Angela
to
is going to respond.
jump in.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yes. So, in, request of this sort of kind of conversation about the broader sort of idea of what's going to happen with all these, pieces and parts, we have engaged with Rhea Cerna, who's an expert through New Mexico Main Street, and she's a contracted official that we have access to. And I think it's, very important to mention because this is a resource that Main Street offers through the state. She does and has a pretty broad scope of service when it comes to this type of thing. So yes, land inventory, I think in another situation she'd be able to tell us a lot of kind of more detail, but particular to Corrales, she has all of the properties that are, kind of newly acquired and would be relevant to how we want to utilize them, in addition to the entire Main Street district and what the best use of these land pieces could potentially be. So her scope of service is broad. It's very broad, maybe more than we need, but I think will still be useful regardless of what the, final outcome ends up being. But she is definitely engaged right now. And I think in coordination with Amy Bell and Groundwork Studios, we'll be developing a plan and a proposal and a scope of service that I think whatever the final outcome is, we'll have a lot of information gathering, through this service request based on, everything that's sort of desirable and in question right now. So.
Yes, sir. Councilwoman.
Yes, I'm just wondering if there'll be an opportunity for the public to weigh in and to be
Sure.
part of the.
Yeah, we have a meeting twice a month.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, there will be. And I think, if it makes sense, knowing that the comprehensive plan, all that data gathering has occurred. B, Corrales Main Street has a lot of information gathered through the cultural planning process that is, specifically tied to the arts and cultural district. However, it just a good time, if you want to think of it that way, with sort of what we're planning or hope to plan to do in terms of like adding to that. So we have the comprehensive plan survey. We've got the cultural plan information gathering. Many groups have been met with, if that makes sense. And I think all of this will end up being, a dovetail, if you want to say it that way, into this final service request and production of information that was requested through this final service request with Rhea. And she's an expert on vacant properties, inventories, things that are probably additional to what we're looking at, but will be helpful kind of, I think, in that sort of information gathering process that's been requested. So it's good timing, it's interesting timing, and I think if nothing else, we'll be able to further ask more questions once we get that service request completed. So definitely in process.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Anything else? Okay, let's move to Coral Lands Forum. This section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion or debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. There is a 3-minute time limit. Do you have your list?
I sure do. Up first tonight is Mr. Fred Hashimoto.
Oh, okay.
If you'll state your name and address for the record, you will have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm Fred Hashimoto. I live at 485 East La Entrada. You probably heard that before. Speaking of large buildings, the large 240-seat theater complex disguised as a multi-use facility does not make much sense, beginning with an S or beginning with a C. Sense. 240 seats is considered too big for residential community theaters like the Adobe Theater, which is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization which has a 90-seat intimate performance space. How would it benefit from 150 seats? How much could it afford to pay? And would that rent even begin to cover operational and maintenance costs of an $8 million theater complex? Adobe Theater has a lease on its 4th Street location and seems content there. For obvious reasons, popular profit-generating touring performing groups seek out big venues like Pope Joy, like Hispanic Cultural Center, and like Sims Auditorium. So who wants a 240-seat theater venue? In the several hours of public input before the MUF committee, no one has favored that. The only group that seems to come to mind is Music in Corrales, another nonprofit organization which relies on donations to support its vital function. It hosts 8 events a year at the old church. They used to cram over 200 seats into the old church until the fire marshal said, no, 150. They'd like to go back to 200 plus. Its president is also the president of the Corrales Cultural Arts Council and also was the chairperson of the ACE committee that designed this 240-seat theater. However, for 8 concerts a year at the old church, they paid less than $2,500 for usage fees. That would be a pittance to begin to cover ongoing costs in an $8 million facility. Music in Corrales wants more seats. They don't particularly need a tiered auditorium, a rehearsal room, 2 large dressing rooms, and a lot of storage space. Options should be considered. Instead of a large tiered seating amphitheater and accompanied rooms specific for theater, what about a flat room, open room that can hold 200 movable seats and which can be used for performances, forums, meetings, weddings, rallies, community dances, whatever. Perhaps a large door can open to the outside area and connect with uses there. This room space would be truly flexible and multi-use. Looking from a higher level, perhaps this facility should be a multi-use, multi-interest, and multi-generational facility and serve the whole community rather than just some subsets of it. A member of the multi-use facility committee suggested a community center. Doesn't that sound good? The current MUF conceptual design for a large theater complex is not appropriate and makes no sense. Let's totally discard that. And if the village contemplates an $8 million multi-use facility, it might cast a wider net in asking representative stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Up next, Miss Chris Allen. If you can state your address, name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Chris Allen, I reside at 299 Ranchitos Road. I'm here to address the animal control ordinance you passed in October. I apologize for not being on the ball when you were passing it. I was distracted with a few other things at the time. But a resident alerted me to some provisions in this ordinance, and I wanted to address those tonight. First of all, it's apparent to me that this language was taken from some other municipality's ordinance, and that's perfectly fine. I did that myself when I was the village administrator. Why reinvent the wheel? However, when you do that, you need to look at the language carefully to make sure that it meets the values and character of the Village of Corrales. And I point to one provision specifically, which is 6-10-C, under nuisances, where it describes continuous and excessive noise. And forgive me, I'm getting old. Where it talks about continuous noise without interruption for a period of at least 10 minutes or a series of 10 one-minute intervals within 30-minute time frame. I can tell you that for the activities that I do at my house, I would be in violation of this ordinance. It takes me 20 to 30 minutes to feed my livestock. I can't feed them all at the same time. And the ones at the end of the line are screaming the whole time until I get down there to pitch them hay. So you're going to hear bahs, and you're going to hear neighs, and you're going to hear quacking, and you're going to hear clucking. Secondly, I raise sheep and goats. I have to protect them against coyotes. We know in the Village of Corrales, we don't want to shoot them. We don't want to trap them. We want to use
Cuddle them.
deterrence in other ways. So I have my dogs out there. My dogs will bark if there are coyotes in the vicinity. They will not stop until those coyotes vacate the area. I don't know how long that'll take. Could take 2 minutes, could take 15 minutes. But I will not stop them because they're important for me to keep my livestock healthy. Thirdly, in the Village of Corrales, you have to realize that some people's companion animals are not just dogs and cats. They could be goats, they could be donkeys. I had one growing up and we called him Foghorn for a reason. It could be peacocks. When I first moved to the village and was nursing a child in the middle of the night reading a book about India, I heard a peacock on Meadowlark and went, I was just transported to India. It was fantastic. But you have to consider these things when you adopt another municipality's language and try and put it on top of the Village of Corrales. I know that you have language, you kind of tip your hat to the right to farm ordinance, but that's more directed towards industrial farms. And I'm not sure that it would cover hobby farmers or people who simply have companion animals of a different ilk than dogs and cats. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Up next is Ms. Margarita Sexton. If you could state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
I am Margarita Gutierrez de Garcia Sexton, and I'm a descendant of the original founding family of Corrales. I live at 5314 Corrales Road. Good evening to all of you and to my fellow Corraleños. We've come here tonight to establish a line of communication and diplomacy. Many of us Corraleños want an honest, transparent voice in what happens in our village. It is with this in mind that we come forward. There are several issues at hand that include, but not limited to, farmers, agriculture, addressing the change from multi-use facility to Corrales Community Center, and town halls that would provide for community dialogue. With this in mind, we cordially invite the village councilors to engage in open discussion with villagers in the next town hall meeting, tentatively scheduled for January. And for your information, I would like to let you know that I am currently in the process of translating the survey into Spanish for use by Johnny Martinez's committee. Thank you for your cordial attention.
Thank you.
Up next, Mr. Rudy Mieta. If you'll state your name and address for the record, you will also have 3 minutes.
My name is Rudy J. Mieta, And Melanie, I live with my wife at 116 East Meadowlark. A poem, Save Our Village, Keep It Rural. It was a sunny morning, 2023. The people gathered to save Corrales for you and for me, to protect our precious village for generations to come, where horses still can gallop and where our ditches still will run. Gray Howells singing violin, the banjos of Douglas Steele. You have to have corrals to call it Corrales. Mary Davis keeps it real. We should still ride our bicycles like Consular Murray. Let's take the time to breathe the alfalfa, not be in such a hurry. It's our open land and fields, we are reminded by Teresa. Toby Grego's rancheras y polkas, the prayers in San Isidro Misa. Tony Tafoya's chili roasting, the fresh baked empanadas, the baking and canning of our 4-Hers, our faithful posadas. The beauty of the Portal and the canales of John Perea's Tijuana Cantina, Meilings, Armónica y los corridos que cantan la gente fina. Marty Sanchez's grandson and all the Coraleños she's taught. Margarita Garcia Sexton and the joyful songs she has brought. Rick Snow talks about a community theater. Hey, I like that. A place for a teen theater. As a matter of fact, why not a community garden with manzanilla y hierba buena for la fiesta de San Isidro, una matanza por la cena? Newcomers who love our village values, we love you too. Join us in keeping our evenings quiet, keep our clear skies blue, our farmers growing peaches, 4-Hers put in a can, sell them at our growers market. Now that's a plan. Cynthia Nava's idea for a barn, not as crazy as it seems. Bobby Shue on his French horn in the old church is the stuff of dreams. With wisdom and courage, we can keep it in balance if we dare. Our roads and lanes safe for horses and riders. Thank you, Janet Blair. Carmen Martinez Titman keeps us all organized. Fresh Hashimoto wails on his sax, it ain't no surprise. Jolene and Wayne, Coraleños like Veronica y la familia Moreno. Johnny Martinez keeps it transparent. Pues, que no? For our new K-8 school, let's not forget Melanie. She's worked with kids in schools. APS might need an education in collaboration and good example to kids and good rules. We love our Corrales from our birth through our life to our grave, from every Wagner's apple to every farmer's wave. So join us in walking those dirt paths that don't need to be paved. The beautiful village of Corrales is ours to save. Our civility and our respect is our strongest bond. What other library in the country has goldfish in their pond? What other village has a symphony of mules, sheep, and larks? If you listen, so, whoa, slow down. Let's talk about keeping our rural vision. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, Mr. Kurt, I'm going to, thank you very much. If you can state your address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Kurt Stromer, I live at 272 Angus Lane. And I just wanted to stop and we recently reinvigorated the Christmas de los Caballos. It's been gone for several years. It happened. It was actually quite the success, even with the weather. We had a good participation, and according to Andrew Miller, more spectators than he's seen in many years. We did have a lot of spectators. I was surprised. But I wanted to thank the village council, the mayor, the fire department, especially Tanya, the police department, and Chief Victor. I won't say your last name because I'll butcher it. Melanie Romano did a lot of work towards it. Michael Chavez opened up short road, double S road for us. I got a lot of good input from Lynn Siebert and the CIAC committee. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that supported it, and we hope to be back next year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, I did get one emailed comment that I've been asked to read into the record this evening. This is from Mr. Rick Toller, who's not able to be with us this evening. His remarks say, "I noticed recently that the sign designating West La Entrada as a bicycle and pedestrian route has been removed. When I spoke to the village engineer about why this was done, he said it was because the signs were faded and needed to be replaced. But he also said that they were not likely to be replaced on West La Entrada because it was not in the trails master plan and because it was too narrow and unsafe in several places. This is one more indication that there is a problem on West La Entrada, but abandoning the bicycle pedestrian designation is not the way to solve the problem. The solution is to make the road safe for pedestrians, bicycles, and horses. The road can't be widened, but it can be striped, the signage can be improved, and the speed limit can be lowered and increased, and meaningful enforcement can be implemented, including ticketing speed control cameras if there is not enough police manpower. The year is coming to an end, and the village has done nothing to address the problems that were raised a year ago. 3 months ago, the mayor proposed a resolution for a week of traffic safety awareness that would have been over before anyone in the village heard about it. This was replaced by the council with 3 months of traffic safety awareness, but the sum total of actions taken was a few social media posts and a mention or two in the mayor's message. I doubt that anyone in the village knows that the gesture was made. The problem remains unsolved on West La Entrada and other village-owned roads. You have the opportunity to declare 2024 the year of traffic safety and create a plan to actually do something instead of making useless gestures, avoiding the issue, or intentionally blocking solutions. We would like to see progress in the new year."
Thank you.
And that is it.
Okay, that's all.
That is all.
All right, we move on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I do
Yes,
have
sir.
a question. I didn't want to remove anything from the consent agenda. I do have a question about a couple items having to do with the cannabis fund. If someone could explain what that is. It's,
We can remove the bar. We'll pull the bar off.
okay.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda except for the bar?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Okay, all those who approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so now let's talk about resolution 23-74. So I don't know if Raina's on, but Raina, if I make a mistake, if you're there, tell them. So the cannabis, okay, do you want to talk or you want me to go ahead and talk?
I can explain it.
Okay.
Good evening, councilors, mayor. So basically, when we get our DRT, cannabis is in there. It goes to general fund. DFA would like us to put it in a separate fund. So all we're doing is we're budgeting this year's cannabis money on the first line, and the second line is transferring old monies from cannabis to this new fund. So it's not anything new, it's just transferring it from general fund to its own fund.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I had forgotten that we actually get money.
No kidding.
For this. So this is coming from the state then, that they collect and then funnel it back to us?
Yes, Counselor, this comes from the state. They collect it and they give it to us. It's about $900 to $1,300 a month, somewhere around there.
So it's money we get from the state. We had to establish a fund. We had some old money we put in the same fund.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And then yeah, okay. Anybody else? Do I have a motion to approve resolution 23-74?
So moved.
Second.
In a second, okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Counselor Murray, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Burkett?
Yes.
Counselor Also Brook?
Aye.
Counselor Knight?
Aye.
Counselor Waldman?
Aye.
And Counselor Miera?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, guys. New business, consideration action approval of resolution 23-75, Open Meetings Act and meeting dates for the governing body of 2024. We do this every year. This is routine. It's just telling people we're going to meet these days and we're going to let everybody come in and see the meetings, or we're going to put them on Zoom or whatever. Any further, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? John?
I just wondered if Councilor Burkett knows his Valentine's Day.
Yes, I was
plans
going to raise that as well.
So Valentine's Eve is in peril with this current calendar, but I'm willing to accept that.
You know, I didn't even think of that.
That's right.
Jeez. Anybody else?
Actually, Mayor, if I may?
Yes, ma'am.
Council, when I attended our most recent Clerks Institute in October, we had representatives from the State Attorney General's office doing a whole session on Open Meetings Act. And he was asking how municipalities notice their meetings, because you're supposed to notice the meeting at least 10 days before the actual meeting. And I told him that we do a resolution every year where we do all the meetings for the whole year. And he goes, that's amazing. Every municipality should do that in the state. So it's something we've done for a very long time. But anyway, good job, council.
Yes, sir.
I do have one question that you're talking about noticing brought up. So the 6 places that we notice are all within really about a quarter mile of each other.
Yeah.
Is there any venues on the far north end and south end of the village where we could also notice for people that don't make it into the core of the village with any regularity?
There's a speed limit sign out there on Corrales Road.
On the welcome to the village sign, we could post it there maybe, and
Yeah.
so, and then at a Tap and Taco, we could put one, and I'll go check it out a couple times a week.
Make sure nobody's faces.
That's right. Yeah, for the community good.
This is actually an issue in a lot of municipalities. I made friends with the clerk in Mosquero. It's really tiny town. She doesn't even have 6 places to post. So, you know, and I talked to Gail. She was the clerk down in Bosque Farms for a long time. And there too, they said, you know, we had to really work to find our 6 places. So really, it needs to be places that are accessible to village employees to be able to go and post. You know, I had thought about possibly trying to post at Ex Novo, but we can't always guarantee that they're going to be open at a time when we need to post our resolutions. So the main thing is that the Attorney General does require, if we have a website, that everything be posted to the website. And more stuff is moving to kind of that.
I bet Councilor Burkett would volunteer to go down to Ex Novo and post this.
I'm a community servant.
He'd go and check every day to make sure it was there.
That's right.
I think we need to put him down at Alameda and out on Corrales Road.
Man.
I don't think we need to go down there.
Better.
Yeah.
Okay, that was somewhat foolish. Okay, so how do you vote, Councilor Mira?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Wallman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Yes.
We'll move on to consideration action approval of resolution 23-76, establishing a 2024 holiday schedule for village employees. So do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Do I have a discussion? Oh, Councilor Murray.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm kind of
course.
curious about the floating holiday. It seems to me that, you know, I'm trying to remember now exactly, if I had my notes up, I would have told you this. It's, I think it has to do with it's the floating holiday. One is indigenous. I think, isn't it indigenous?
Yes.
So we float President's Day to the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we've done that for years.
But
So
what would it cost us if we just said, do President's Day and the day after Thanksgiving? Would it cost us much more to give them off on President's Day like everybody else?
I don't know.
I don't know what that would be.
I don't know what you mean by more.
Well, I mean,
We'd have to pay their salaries for that day.
well, I understand, but why,
You want to give them that day off?
I want to give them President's Day off like everybody else in the feds.
Well, amend it and make that motion.
I move that we amend that we give President's Day off to the employees and also the day after Thanksgiving.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, your motion carries.
Thank you.
So they get the day off after Thanksgiving as well as
President's Day.
President's Day.
Thank you, Counselor.
You know, I think they'll quit throwing darts at your picture now.
I mean, how about that for the surprise of the meeting? The guy giving extra days off.
Gee, spending more money? Stuart, come on, what are they going to think about you?
Big spender.
Well, you know, the election's over. I don't have to run anymore.
And you won. Okay, so any further discussion about this? It's getting really kind of, you guys,
The
it
fire
must
department
be
is-
getting late here.
The fire department is cheering right now. I just got a text.
Good.
They're still working. They're still working those days. Somebody is. Okay, how do you vote, Counselor Murray?
Yes.
This is for the main resolution now, with the amendment that you placed. Okay. Counselor Burkett.
Yes.
Counselor Alsobrook.
Aye.
Counselor Knight.
Aye.
Counselor Woolman.
Aye.
Counselor Mira.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it passes. Great. Gosh, did you think that was going to happen?
I did not. It's a
Man.
Christmas miracle.
Okay, it's a Christmas miracle. Yes, that's right. Consideration of action and approval of Resolution 23-77, approval of publication for notice of hearing for ordinance 24-01 zone map amendment. This is a zone map amendment from existing residential to commercial because it's within the commercial core. Yes,
I do have a question.
I need a motion.
Yes.
You have a motion? You're going to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve?
Second.
There's a second. Okay, go ahead.
Can I identify where the property is?
You have
On the notice
It is at
itself, it gives
40
you-
4678 Corrals Road.
Right. And what is that?
It's a house.
Just a house?
It's a small house. What, 895 square feet?
Half acre.
I don't know if it says.
It's a little house. I think Doug Finley bought it and they're cleaning it up, fixing it up, and they may do Airbnb. They have not decided what they're going to do according to the.
Do you want me to read Lori's memo?
Go ahead.
Into the
Yes.
record? Okay, so this is the memo from Lori to the governing body regarding ZMA 23-02, map 18, lot 17-A-1, with the address of 4678 Corrales Road. It is a 0.51 acre parcel. Applicant Douglas Finley requests a zone change from A1 agricultural and rural residential to C neighborhood commercial. On November 15th, 2023, all 5 planning and zoning commissioners present voted to approve the zone change request, finding 1, the application as presented is compliant with Village Code Section 18-48B, zone map amendments, and 2, the lot is within the Corrales Road commercial area, abuts and is accessed via Corrales Road, and therefore eligible for rezone. And then she includes the motion and that all 5 council members present voted in favor of it. She adds, please note, no commercial uses on the site were approved that evening, only the zone change itself. Future commercial uses would require a site development plan application to be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and vote. At present, there is a small single-family dwelling on the site. Any proposed business uses within that home would need to adhere to the home occupation application permit guidelines at this point without a site development plan. And then we have the draft minutes from the meeting. And I have paper copies if anybody would like them.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Stuart, you had some questions earlier today. Are you okay?
Yeah, because my only question was.
Right.
The letter, and I was trying to determine if it met the 350-foot requirement, which it does. So I have no issues.
Yeah, we're going to have there will be another shot at this if they decide to do something.
From that corner parking lot?
Okay, so how do you vote, Stuart? Counselor Burkett?
Yes.
Counselor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Counselor Knight?
Aye.
Counselor Woolman?
Aye.
Counselor Mira?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it passes. Now, we're going to move on to discussion of meeting procedures for the governing body. Have you guys looked through that? I've addressed a few things to Randy, but they're more related to the hearing part, appeal hearing procedures. Who wants to go first? Does anybody have anything they want to change, they want to clarify, they want to add to? What? Yes, sir, Councilor Burkett.
So just hopefully a simple one. As far as order of activities, I would love to see confirmation of appointments not included in the consent agenda, moved up in the agenda. So if somebody is appointed to a commission, that they don't have to sit here for 3.5 hours to get acknowledged as appointed to such if they choose to come. Just move that earlier in the meeting. I don't really know where it makes sense. Probably right around consent agenda, since that's when we're doing the consent agenda. All the other stuff, but that way if somebody does come in and their family wants to be here, that they don't have to sit here for all the evening to get to that part of the meeting. It's listed as item number 12 in the list of activities for each.
So those have been new appointments, right?
Yes. and
We
that-
can probably move those up.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't
that-
see a
that-
problem with
That's how
that.
we do them currently. It's in ordinance that way currently, so that's just what I put them as, because that's what's in our ordinance. But yeah, we could, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do all the appointments in the consent agenda, and then if somebody wanted to debate a particular appointment, it could be pulled off.
Pull it out.
Okay, that's not a problem. Yes, sir.
I have a question about item number 5. It says reports by officers. Is that in effect the administrator's report?
Yes, that includes the administrator's report.
Thank you. Didn't want to leave that out, Ron.
Oh, you thought we had forgotten him.
I thought he had forgotten it.
We can't forget him. He would never let it happen. Yes, sir, Council Murray.
So in the first section, 1.1 meetings under F, I would like to see the majority of the governing body added to the sentence where it says discretion of presiding officer or the majority of governing body. It's it's in work studies and work sessions. There are times when I think that we should be here in the public, but I would like the majority of the governing body to decide also as well.
Did you want that to be an and or an or?
Or.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
1.1F?
Yeah, work sessions, it says, public input will be only allowed at discretion of the presiding officer or the majority of the governing body.
Or a majority of the governing body.
Yes. And. Yeah. I also had a question too about, oh shoot, now I gotta find it again. More notes. Oh, under motions, under 2.6A4. Can you explain that to me? A motion should not be offered if its only effect is to propose that a body refrain from doing something, since the same result can be accomplished by no motion at all.
So Robert's Rules of Order does state that if you're going to make a motion, it should always be in the affirmative. So you would say, I move to approve. You would
Okay.
never say, I move to not approve,
Right.
because basically you would just not do anything.
Okay.
So that's,
So we can't deny an appeal.
yes,
What was a positive motion?
Only vote against
Yeah.
approving one.
right,
Okay.
yes.
I mean, you can think about how it would be if you're trying to vote on a negative motion. I mean, it sometimes can be very confusing, trying to say, now, if you vote yes for this, you're voting actually no.
Yeah, we've done that.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
No, it's gotta be a positive
Yeah,
motion.
that's right. You voted for it before you voted against it. Okay. So anybody else? Anything
Well,
else?
I still have another question for you, and it probably will dovetail into your discussion about the appeals, so I can hold back on that. And
Yeah, you're going to look into some of that, aren't you, for us?
What I want to do, some of you will recall, we ran into an issue in a land use hearing where it was pointed out that we had amended the ordinance under one section to have one appeal process, and then another section of the ordinance has another appeal process. So we need to, at some point, bring those together, and I just want to make sure that this is written in a way that we can follow either rule until we fix it.
This, so that does bring up a question that was pointed out to me. If you look through our ordinances and you search on aggrieved or appeals, you get a variety of different issues, either de novo or you get the aggrieved definition, which I think shouldn't have been in the procedures. I think we either need to have a definition outside that somewhere in the ordinance, or we can use the state, state.
And that was one of the things that the mayor brought up. There was an interchangeable aggrieved party in interest, and that all needs to be consistent with our ordinance.
Yeah, because I noticed, it said any person aggrieved or et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it was confusing to me in the appeal process section.
Well, one of my concerns is, how do we define the aggrieved party? They do define it in here.
Well, it is, but
But then again, they sometime later say, they'd start using the term, as he's pointed out, interested persons.
Yeah, but the states, if you look at the state statutes, that has been defined in the MSSA 1978 version. That was determined by a court case, and it is listed in the state statutes that is, aggrieved is a definition. And it's the same thing that Melanie had stuck in that paragraph. So but I agree that we have it scattered throughout the ordinances, and we need to be consistent about it.
Well, now, we're not going to make this isn't going to be an ordinance though, correct?
No,
This is basically going to be our rules of running a meeting.
Yeah.
So that we can change them without having to go through all the
But
stuff
the
with-
other concern I have too has to do with getting things on the agenda, because I understand that you want to approve the agenda, you or Ron, or both. What happens if you are not available when that agenda comes out?
So the way the agenda is done, neither of us really, it's a team effort. We look at the whiteboard, and you guys are more than welcome to go over there and cast your votes for something on the board. I mean, she puts everything up there that all of us talk about. We say, oh, we need to talk about that. Or somebody calls and said, we need to talk about that, or we need to start looking at that. So, it goes up on the board, and then we try to figure out how much time each thing takes, because here we are, we really had a very light meeting, if you look at it, and we're already 2 hours. Now, it's because we don't know how the discussions are going to proceed, but we try to use, past history to determine, because I don't know about you guys, I don't want to be here at 10 o'clock.
But Mayor.
So that's how we decide the agenda.
But also, Mayor, I submitted, I think a few months ago, at least 2 requests to be put on the agenda, and you said no. And basically, it was a denial of a request that, I wanted on the agenda, but you said no to it. Okay. At some point, we've got to address how the council can submit legislation and have it go on the agenda in a timely fashion, so that we don't get bumped down the road, like every other meeting or so like that. And I think some of the rules in here, but I really like the way Rio Rancho did it, because any counselor could submit a legislative piece of legislation, and it would go on the agenda automatically. I don't know how their meetings work. They may stretch 4 or 5 hours. I don't know. But at some point, we as counselors ought to be able to get something on the agenda in a timely fashion without it getting kicked off, down the road.
I agree. You're right. You're correct. Yes, sir.
I would just follow up to Councilor Murray. I agree. The 2.1A gave me a little pause. I think we can capture in there appropriately the judgment of time allowances. And I think that would be fair to actually, codify and put in here. But in general, the way it's written, the approval of mayor and village administrator prepared the agenda. And our friends in the West, as Councilor Murray mentioned, they specifically say that items submitted for the agenda are given a number, and as soon as they're submitted to the clerk, they're considered they're deemed to have been introduced to the governing body. And at that point, they're on a list, and nobody screened it, nobody filtered it. But given time constraints, you could certainly say, there's 20 things to come up on the agenda. We've got time for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You draw a line, and there you go. And the next meeting after that starts out with what was number 8. I think that would be completely reasonable, but otherwise, I do agree with Councilor Murray. It's as written, would allow for other office holders to do things differently.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just from an administrative standpoint, along the same general rule, in 2.1D, it talks about the agenda has to be out 72 hours before the meeting. But under counselor's responsibilities, it says if we want to substitute legislation, if we see the agenda and we want to substitute legislation, it has to be done 72 hours before the meeting. So at the exact same time that the agenda has to be in our hands is our deadline to make adjustments to legislation that we're going to discuss at that meeting. So I think we need to change one of those deadlines, because it doesn't work if they're both 72 hours.
I would hope that you wouldn't introduce something for legislation cold 72 hours before a meeting. I would say maybe 72 hours down, maybe 72 hours before the meeting, but not to be presented until the next meeting.
The way I'm reading this is if we read something that comes out in the packet and we want to make a modification to it that we think is maybe more substantive than an amendment, that we need to reach out to yourself and to the clerk 72 hours before to maybe get that changed and have a discussion about that. And we don't have the opportunity to do that if we don't see it until 72 hours before.
All of that came from the Rio Rancho procedures. So, we can change it to modify, match what we do. But yeah, that came from their rules.
Did you have something else you wanted to say? I called on somebody and you look like you might.
No, I had a thought on something, but I unthunk it, so it's all good.
Okay. Yes, sir.
If I may, Mayor, one thing I've seen you folks do, and it works well in other communities, is when in items for future agendas, when that part of the agenda comes up and there's a discussion, and it may be that there's something that everyone knows we have to do, for example, the budget. And when that's going to be happening, maybe we have to put things off for a couple meetings, but at that time we can schedule it more accurately for a date certain after the budget's done, for example. I mean, that's one place where you can do that and have those discussions with the mayor and get everybody on the same page.
Mayor?
What did I say no about? I don't remember.
I think it had,
It must have been something I really didn't
In
like.
regard to West Meadowlark
yeah,
meeting or something.
or I think it was Lontrada.
I'm sorry, Lontrada.
But also, I noticed in Robert's Rules of Orders too, that they said to introduce new business into your agenda, you can make a motion, and if the rest of the council follows suit, then it needs to go on either the agenda or some immediate time.
But as a municipality,
Yes, sir.
I think we're restricted because we
Correct.
have to give due notice for topics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, if we're talking about at the end of the meeting, future agenda items.
Oh, I see. Future agenda.
Yeah,
Sorry.
future
I
agenda
misunderstood.
items.
You mean if you want to have it the next meeting?
Yeah, I can make a motion at the end of the meeting or put something on the agenda.
For the next meeting?
If council agrees, then it should go on the agenda.
I don't think that's a problem. It just means we might move something else down
Yeah,
a little bit.
I think the only thing where we might come into some issues is like our summer meetings in June, July especially, when we have specific resolutions that have to be passed for RENA's budget. And, it making a very long meeting in July, but I think Randy kind of.
Is that where that
already
number
alluded-
comes in
I'm sorry?
on C, that you're talking about? Or what we're talking about? Do they have a number?
Oh, no, we don't usually number the items, but
We
I-
have it, but we have it in here, that's what I'm saying.
The resolutions, you mean, like the resolutions and ordinances?
Well, yeah, I said, when it's been filed with the village and issued a number, like when he
Oh, yeah,
called in, it
like
would've
the
given a number.
ordinance. The ordinance
Yeah,
would get a
but
number, the
they don't-
resolution gets a number.
When she
yeah.
puts them on the whiteboard, they don't have a number until we're ready to bring them to the council, and then they're assigned a number.
They
It's
don't
not
get a,
prioritized at all.
yeah, they don't get a
They're not
number
no.
until like the day of the
But
agenda
only
going
the-
out.
Only the ordinance and resolutions, not an idea.
Correct, yeah.
Wait, did you want to say something?
No, I think in answer to what you all are saying, I think you're on the right track. That is the appropriate time. And the main thing that the mayor has control of is the scheduling to make the meetings run. That's his job. So, I mean, and so you can have that discussion though, I want this on next meeting. Well, we've already got these three things in this
We've talked
2-hour
about
appeal
that.
we have to do. What about the next meeting? Those discussions.
Yes, John.
Thank you, Mayor. Just had a couple of questions about section 3.2 rules of voting. In A, basically says the only recognized reason for an abstention is a conflict of interest. And that a member of the governing body must vote yes or no.
That actually comes from the state.
Yes.
Yes.
So that was part of my question is okay. And then the second question I had was for C underneath that. Roll call votes shall be at random. If that's required, I guess we have to keep it, but You just sort of sweep up and down as.
I try to do random,
I don't think.
but
there's need
sometimes it's
for it.
easier just to look up and go up and down. Sometimes, okay, I'm going to start with you for a while.
We could do reverse alphabetic.
I do think though.
Oh, don't make it complicated. Come on, don't make it too hard for
But
me.
anyway, I just, the part about at random, I did.
Okay,
it seems
all right. Well, we'll try to do better. You know, we did the seating at random for a while, and then we said, oh, let's just do it by district.
I think we're district order right
Yeah.
now, so.
Counselor Murray.
So on that same paragraph C, I would add or voice vote. It says show of hands. We do things by voice vote, so I would just add that in to the end of that paragraph. If it's.
Yeah, I think that would be okay.
And the other, anyway.
Oh, I see what you're saying. We don't say that in here, do we? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can do show of hands, but we also do voice votes.
Well, you just got to be sure the mayor can count beyond 5. Okay. Anybody else? Melanie, do you have anything you wanted to add that you? Okay.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, we will put this together and we will put it on an agenda in the future for us to vote on. You know, what's that? Yes, to vote on in a random way, and we'll put that in there too.
Hopefully I'm not voting.
Okay, future agenda items. We're gonna have a swearing-in ceremony for the counselors who were elected at the last traumatic election we had. I mean, so controversial and all that.
A landslide.
Yeah, right.
There's a landslide.
We wanted a landslide.
Yeah, landslide election, yeah.
Could be
What did y'all get, 100 votes or something?
180, I think.
180? Well, that's pretty good, all right.
I'm the bronze medalist.
That's not bad. Well, that's over 1,000 if you multiply that by, oh, that's 6, so that's not right. It'd be
All
about
right.
3.
So Mayor, I would like to add, if possible, that we address the traffic evaluation procedures on the January 9th agenda.
Now, are these the traffic evaluation procedures that we have been?
Draft, in draft form.
Okay.
You sent us that.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so then we have a presentation from the Interior Drain Committee on January 9th. And we have, we're going to get an update on the bond that was asked by Councilor Burkett, I think. That's going to be on the 23rd. We're talking to her like on the 3rd or something by
Yeah,
Zoom?
I think administration has a meeting with them the 3rd or the 4th.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. But she'll give us an update and tell us, why, what's going to happen. Yes, sir.
So how about the ICIP list? Are we going to address that too before legislature starts? I mean.
We've already approved the ICIP.
Right, yeah, we did.
But we
And
can
I-
talk about it again because we've told them, why don't you pass those out and you guys can look at that.
I'll give you these after the meeting.
We're
This is
trying to
our first
finish
one.
up a lot of jobs. There's a lot of stuff in the village that we need to complete. Meadowlark, for example, we still need money. Parking lot, for example, we still need money. And we wanted to work on tell me we still want to finish fire suppression.
Yeah, so the council voted, remember you did a survey through SurveyMonkey and you ranked our projects.
I
And-
forget.
Yeah, so it was a while back. I think it was August when we did that.
Oh, gosh,
And-
yes, we've slept since then. Maybe
Yeah,
you should send
we've
out
had-
our
We've had
update.
many sleeps. But yeah,
This is what we put together.
I put together a brochure that we give to our, to Representative Cates and Senator McKenna. And this has our top 5. So this is the top 5 that you voted on as being the most important. And then these are the ones that will be submitted for capital outlay requests, along with a few others at requests of the department heads.
We've been told that there is an emphasis on fire suppression. And the guy who sits next to Michelle Lujan Grisham up there in Santa Fe is, who?
Mr. Aaron Cohen.
Yeah, that's him. I think that's right.
Yeah, Roberto.
Yeah, he's apparently an old fireman.
Yes.
Okay. And so we think we hope we have his ear, and he will give us all the funds we need to finish all the stuff that we want to do. But we're still waiting for the preliminary engineering report to be sure that we have everything covered. and that we will get enough money to do everything. So it's kind of a, you're almost like, you feel like you're chasing your tail, sort of.
So are we going to get the fire chief to give us, I want to say,
You want him to come talk?
no, I want him to give us a skiing lesson behind the new airboat.
Oh, you want to test drive?
Yeah.
Well, that's between you and the fire chief. But he is going down there to check on what the Bureau of Reclamation is doing on the river. So you guys, if you're interested in that, don't have more than 3 in the boat. It's hard to replace, it's hard to replace 3 counselors, so.
I mean, it's hard to replace the boat.
Apparently, it's just
Nobody votes against it.
administrative.
Say again?
So evidently replacing 3 counselors is simply an administrative act.
Okay. All right, so then the other thing is we're having a special meeting.
I
Yes,
want to
sir.
point out that the paper today said that there is approximately $3.5 billion in new money the state has to work with this year.
Well, there's also a report in the paper that says we're going to be, not making a whole lot of money after June of 25. So I don't want them to get too carried away. I kind of like having a little money, I like having our little money set aside.
They can look to Corrales at how to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm walking around.
Special meeting for appeal, site development plan 23-03, site development plan for the Hemporium at 5:30 PM on Tuesday, January 23rd, before the meeting. Don't research, don't ask. She'll present, they'll present, Lori will present, and Hemporium will present, and we'll make a decision. Okay. Unless somebody has something really urgent and pressing, we have completed the business of the Village of Corrales this evening.
Amen.
And I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Hallelujah.